comments about how her friends' husbands managed to build careers locally. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs. The year I turned 45, Rebecca stopped asking about my return dates. Our video calls grew shorter, more perfunctory. I attributed it to the natural maturation of a long-distance marriage. Comfort replacing novelty, routine replacing uncertainty. Last spring, I returned from Tokyo to find she'd completely redecorated our home office, my workspace, into what she called a meditation room. My desk, files, and personal library had been relocated to a small spare bedroom. When questioned, she simply said, "I needed the space for my personal growth." 3 months ago, I noticed substantial transfers from our joint investment account into one I didn't recognize. "Property investment opportunity," she explained. "Time-sensitive deal through the gallery. I'll show you the prospectus when you're back." I drove by the gallery before leaving for this trip to Asia. It was closed for renovation, with no sign of investment properties in their portfolio. But there was a sleek Tesla parked in Rebecca's reserved spot, one I'd never seen before. 6 weeks ago, she stopped answering video calls altogether, responding only with texts about being overwhelmed with the gallery's expansion. 2 days before her divorce text, our neighbor Edward sent a message. "Thought you should know. Moving trucks at your house today." He attached a photo showing workers carrying our antique dining set, a wedding gift from my grandparents, into a large truck. I didn't respond immediately. Sometimes observation reveals more than confrontation. I finished my meetings in Singapore the day after Rebecca's text and returned to my hotel suite. My secure phone rang, Vincent calling from New York. "Are you sitting down?" he asked. "Just tell me what you found." Vincent didn't cushion the blow. "She's been planning this for at least 18 months. Regular transfers to a separate account under her maiden name, initially small amounts, 3,000 to 5,000, then accelerating over the last quarter. Total diverted funds, approximately $412,000. The room seemed momentarily airless. That was nearly double what our joint account had held. "There's more," Vincent continued. "She changed the beneficiary designations on your life insurance policy last year and took out a $175,000 home equity line of credit against the Boston property. The signature on those documents doesn't match your previous signatures." I sat at the edge of the hotel bed, suddenly aware of the distant hum of Singapore traffic 40 floors below. 16 years together, nearly 2 decades of shared life, and she'd been methodically extracting herself and our assets for over a year. "The man?" I finally asked. "Gabriel Mercer, 32, former gallery assistant, limited employment history in legitimate art circles, 3 previous relationships with wealthy women over 45. Each ended within 24 months, with Mercer receiving consulting fees or investment returns before disappearing." The pattern was unmistakable. Rebecca wasn't just leaving me. She was being systematically manipulated by someone who'd done this before. "Alexander," Vincent's voice dropped lower, "there are charges for 2 one-way tickets to Barcelona, dated for next Thursday. They're not just separating from you. They're planning to disappear before you return stateside." I thanked Vincent and ended the call, sitting in darkness as the Singapore skyline glittered beyond my window. I didn't turn on the lights, just watched as memories rearranged themselves into a new, darker narrative. Her sudden interest in Spanish language courses 3 years ago. The mysterious weekend gallery retreats. The gradual liquidation of our most portable assets. What struck me most wasn't the betrayal itself, but its methodical execution. The patient, calculated dismantling of our life while maintaining the facade of our marriage, while accepting the international transfers I sent monthly, while telling me she missed me during our occasional calls. Something crystallized inside me then, the hurt transforming into cold clarity. I walked to the hotel safe and removed my laptop. I accessed an email account known only to Vincent and myself, then logged into the holding company we'd established a decade earlier after I'd witnessed a colleague lose everything in a similar divorce scenario. Sentinel Securities, named after the lighthouse near my childhood home in Maine. The account balance loaded, $3.8 million. I'd been directing 65% of my income there for 10 years, declared on taxes but segregated from our marital assets through the corporate structure Vincent had designed. Rebecca had always shown remarkably little interest in our detailed financial planning, preferring to focus on the lifestyle our income afforded rather than its sources and allocations. One text message changed everything. "I'm done with this marriage. I've already moved your things and transferred our accounts." My wife of 16 years chose 4:37 a.m. while I was 8,000 miles away in Singapore to tell me she was leaving with a younger man and all our money. What she didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this possibility for years. She thought she'd left me with nothing, but I was about to teach her an expensive lesson about underestimating the man she married. "I'm done with this marriage. I've met someone who actually makes me happy. I've already moved your things to storage and transferred our accounts. Don't bother coming home." The text arrived at 4:37 a.m. in Singapore, just as I was preparing for a critical presentation to international investors. My name is Alexander Reed, 49, a financial consultant who spent the last 2 decades building investment portfolios across Asia. My hands were still clutching my presentation notes when I read the message from Rebecca, my wife of 16 years. I stared at my phone as another message appeared, a screenshot of our joint account showing $0 where $237,000 should have been. She'd added a simple, "Good luck," with a waving emoji, as if she were saying goodbye after a casual lunch. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't cancel my presentation. I simply typed, "Understood. Take care." Then I silenced my notifications and straightened my tie. The delegation from Tokyo was waiting, and I had a reputation for unshakable professionalism to maintain. My colleague Jasmine noticed something was off when I declined the celebratory champagne after securing the $50 million investment. "Everything all right, Alex?" she asked as we packed up our materials. "Everything's proceeding exactly as it should," I replied. And in a way I couldn't yet explain, it was. That evening in my hotel suite, I opened my laptop to find Rebecca had already filed for divorce, claiming irreconcilable differences and emotional abandonment due to excessive international work commitments. Her lawyer was requesting expedited proceedings and full ownership of our Victorian home in Boston. I closed my laptop, ordered room service, and made one call, not to Rebecca, but to my old university friend Vincent, an estate attorney in New York. "It's time to activate Protocol Glacier," I said quietly. Vincent's response was immediate. "Understood. Don't engage with anything until you're back on U.S. soil. When's your return?" "I have 3 more days of meetings here, then stops in Hong Kong and Seoul. I'll be back in 2 weeks." I could have arranged emergency travel, but what would that accomplish? Better to finish securing the Asian portfolios and the substantial commissions they represented. The next morning, I led our team through detailed investment strategies as though my personal life hadn't imploded hours earlier. During a break, I checked my email to find Rebecca had already listed our Boston home with a realtor. She needed my signature to proceed with the sale, which explained the sudden barrage of texts and voicemails on my phone. "Alex, please call me about the house paperwork. It's urgent." "Alex, my attorney needs your signature by tomorrow." "Alexander, be reasonable. This is a fantastic offer, but they need to close quickly." The desperation in her messages was revealing. She had plans that required liquid assets, and she needed them fast. My director, Sophia, approached me during lunch. "Your phone's been lighting up like a Christmas tree. Everything stabilized?" She wasn't just asking about our investment accounts. "Everything's proceeding according to plan," I replied, and resumed reviewing projections for our Korean investors. I met Rebecca when I was 33, at a charity auction in Manhattan. She was 30, working in art acquisitions for a prestigious gallery, knowledgeable and passionate about contemporary artists. We connected over shared ambitions and complementary skills. My financial acumen and her cultural sophistication created what I thought was a perfect partnership. We married 11 months later, perhaps too quickly, but we both operated decisively when opportunity presented itself. I'd already established a solid reputation in international finance, owned a waterfront condo in Boston outright, and had a clear career trajectory. Rebecca seemed to admire my global perspective and strategic thinking. I admired her aesthetic sensibility and social connections. The travel schedule was always challenging, 2 weeks abroad, 2 weeks home, but the compensation was exceptional. Within 5 years, I was earning what most executives made in 10. We agreed the lifestyle was worth it. She would maintain our social standing in Boston. I would build our financial future worldwide. Our understanding seemed perfect. Around year 9, subtle shifts began. Complaints about missed gallery openings, questions about why I needed to take the Singapore accounts personally. I sent a single email to my attorney in New York. Initiate Operation North Star. I landed in New York 44 hours after concluding my meetings in Singapore, having accelerated my return and bypassed the planned stops in other Asian financial centers. Vincent met me at the private aviation terminal, handing me a new phone and a portfolio of documents. "She's been calling your regular number constantly since yesterday," he said as we walked to his car. "The bank flagged the last transfer attempt. $237,000 is well above their automatic review threshold. They're requesting in-person verification. She doesn't know I'm back. No one does except me and Margaret. Margaret was my litigation attorney. That's not the most interesting development." Vincent handed me his tablet, displaying a series of text messages between Rebecca and someone saved simply as G. I scrolled through their conversations. Plans for their fresh start in Barcelona, mockery of my work schedule while they enjoyed my money, details about the apartment they'd already secured in the Gothic quarter. One exchange from 3 days ago stood out. Rebecca: "Bank froze the last transfer. Need Alex to verify in person. What now?" G: "He's still in Asia for 2 weeks. Tell him your mother's ill. Get him to authorize you to handle it. You're still his wife." Rebecca: "He's not answering calls." G: "Try harder. We need that money before the Barcelona closing or we look at contingency plan." Rebecca: "I told you I don't want to do that." G: "It's just insurance money. His job involves constant international travel to high-risk locations. Accidents happen all the time." I handed the tablet back to Vincent, my hands steady but cold. "These messages are admissible?" I asked. "They're from the cloud backup of her phone. She used your Apple account to set up her new iPad last year. Never changed the password. Everything syncs to your cloud storage." We drove directly to Margaret's office in Midtown. She'd already prepared divorce filings, a criminal complaint regarding the forged home equity documents, and emergency motions to freeze all associated assets. "There are complications," Margaret advised once we were seated in her glass-walled conference room. "Yesterday, Rebecca filed domestic abuse allegations against you, claims she's leaving due to a pattern of controlling behavior and financial manipulation. Says she fears for her safety when you return." "That's absurd. I've been in Asia for the past 5 weeks. It's a tactical move to gain court sympathy and justify the asset transfers. Her attorney's pushing for an emergency hearing tomorrow to secure a restraining order and exclusive use of the Boston property." I processed this information. "So she wants to legally bar me from my own home while her boyfriend liquidates our assets?" Margaret nodded grimly. "And there's more. The home equity loan. She transferred the entire amount to an LLC registered to Gabriel Mercer 2 days after receiving it." I took a deep breath. "What are our options?" "We counterfile immediately. Fraud, forgery, criminal conspiracy based on those text messages. We request an emergency freeze on all her accounts and the LLC." She slid a document across the polished table. "And we file this." I looked down at the paper. "Motion to dismiss domestic abuse claim with evidence of perjury." "What evidence?" I asked. Margaret's smile was razor-thin. "Your passport stamps. Your company's security logs showing your continuous presence in Singapore. Hotel records confirming your occupancy. Phone GPS data placing you definitively in Asia during the alleged incidents. And I've subpoenaed your phone records showing all communications between you two for the past year. Nothing suggesting arguments or threats." I signed where indicated, then looked up at Margaret. "I want to add something else." "What's that?" "I want to be present when she's served, not hiding behind legal papers. I want to see her face when she realizes what's happening." Vincent and Margaret exchanged glances. "That's not standard procedure," Margaret began. "Neither is what she's done," I replied. "I need this, for closure." Margaret nodded slowly. "I'll arrange it, but there can't be any confrontation, Alexander. You observe only. Understood?" "Perfectly." I spent that night in Vincent's guest house in Connecticut, sleeping soundly for the first time in days. The next morning, I logged into the security system I'd installed in our Boston home 3 years earlier, a system Rebecca had either forgotten about or assumed I couldn't access remotely. The footage showed a young man lounging in our living room, drinking from the collection of rare scotch I'd curated over decades, wearing what appeared to be my custom-tailored dress shirt. He was on a call, laughing, feet propped on the antique coffee table I'd restored myself during a rare month-long sabbatical. While I watched, Rebecca entered the frame. She looked anxious, pacing as she talked. I couldn't hear the audio, but her body language was unmistakable. Things weren't proceeding according to plan. Vincent joined me, setting down coffee. "You should see this," he said, opening his laptop. He'd spent the night investigating Gabriel Mercer's background more thoroughly. He's done this before, 4 times. Vincent turned the screen toward me. Each instance followed the same pattern. Meet a wealthy, usually married woman. Cultivate a relationship. Help her exit her marriage with maximum assets. Relocate to a new city. Then disappear with whatever wealth could be extracted. "There's more," Vincent said quietly. He was investigated in connection with the death of a previous girlfriend's husband. The man's brake lines were severed before a drive on a mountain road in Switzerland. No charges were filed due to insufficient evidence, but the implications hung in the air between us. My phone rang. Rebecca calling my regular number again. I let it go to voicemail. "Listen to this," Vincent said, playing the message on speaker. "Alex, please. I need you to call the bank." Her voice cracked with what sounded like genuine distress. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding with our accounts. I was just moving funds to a more secure investment like we discussed, but something triggered an automatic review. I can't access anything. Please call them and verify it's okay. I'm really scared, Alex." We had discussed no such thing. The performance was convincing. I'd have believed her a week ago. "She's desperate," Margaret confirmed when we met her that afternoon. "The Barcelona apartment closing is in 4 days. They need that money." "What's our next move?" I asked. "The emergency hearing is this evening. Judge Calloway is presiding. She has zero tolerance for false allegations of abuse. We have your documented alibi ready. The bank has frozen all associated accounts pending legal resolution, and we filed to have all transferred assets returned exclusively to you." As we left Margaret's office, our neighbor Edward texted me, "More furniture being loaded out today. They just took your grandfather's desk, the one you said was irreplaceable. Some thefts transcend money, some betrayals cut deeper than others. This had become personal in an entirely new way." "Change of plans," I told Vincent and Margaret as we walked to the car. "I want to go home now, not tomorrow." "Alexander, that's not—" Margaret began. "Not to confront them," I clarified. "To observe from Edward's house across the street. I want to witness this personally, not just read about it in legal documents." They exchanged concerned glances before Margaret nodded reluctantly. "The sheriff will serve papers at 7 p.m. We'll meet them there at 6:45. The 3-hour drive to Boston gave me time to reflect. Margaret arranged for court officers to accompany the sheriff, given the value of assets potentially being removed from the property. Everything was in place. Edward greeted me with a wordless handshake when I arrived at 6:30 p.m. A retired diplomat, he understood international betrayals better than most. "They have no idea you're watching?" I asked once we were inside his study, which offered a clear view of my driveway. "None. Been busy all day, packing the valuable items, discarding the rest. 2 moving trucks earlier, another scheduled for tomorrow morning." I nodded, processing this information. "Anyone else been by?" "Woman with a clipboard yesterday. Looked like a real estate agent." That was unexpected. "They're selling the house?" "Listing it, from what I gathered. Saw her taking exterior photos." I immediately called Margaret, who promised to check property records. By 6:40 p.m., she'd confirmed my suspicion. Rebecca had listed our home with a luxury real estate agency 3 days earlier, with an asking price 25% below market value for a rapid sale. Once again, my forged signature appeared on the documents. At precisely 6:45 p.m., Margaret arrived with Vincent. At 6:55 p.m., an unmarked car parked across the street. 2 sheriff's deputies and a court officer emerged. "It's time," I said to Edward, who nodded silently. I walked across the street as the deputies approached my front door. Rebecca answered, her expression shifting from irritation to confusion as they identified themselves. "Mrs. Reed, we have legal documents to serve you and the other individual currently on these premises." I remained just out of sight, watching from beside a large maple tree as the color drained from Rebecca's face. She called for Gabriel, who appeared behind her, his arm sliding possessively around her waist. That's when I stepped into full view. The look on Rebecca's face was one I'll never forget. Shock dissolving into fear, then rapidly recalculating to find a new angle. Gabriel simply looked confused. "Who's this?" he asked Rebecca. "My husband," she whispered. "You're supposed to be in Seoul." "Surprise," I said quietly, nodding to the deputies to proceed. They handed over the stack of documents, emergency restraining order against them both, freezing of all associated assets, criminal complaint for forgery, nullification of the property listing, and notice of divorce proceedings citing fraud and criminal conspiracy. "You can't do this," Gabriel spoke up, attempting to look authoritative. "She's afraid of you. We have documentation." "Dismissed this morning," I interrupted calmly. "Difficult to abuse someone from 8,000 miles away. Judge Calloway was particularly interested in your text discussions about contingency plans involving my life insurance policy." His face went slack. Rebecca stepped forward, tears already forming. "Alex, this is all a terrible misunderstanding. I was just trying to save our marriage." I finished for her, gesturing to the moving trucks. "Protect our future by selling our home without telling me. Secure our retirement by emptying our accounts." She had no answer. "You have 20 minutes to collect essential personal items only," the court officer stated firmly. "Clothing and toiletries. Everything else remains pending inventory and court determination." The hearing took place 2 weeks later. I sat at one table with Margaret, Rebecca and her attorney at another. Gabriel was notably absent. He'd disappeared 3 days after being served, taking Rebecca's remaining jewelry and the cash she'd managed to withdraw from her personal account. A predictable pattern, exactly as Vincent had discovered. Judge Calloway reviewed the evidence methodically. Bank records, forged documents, text messages, location data. When she reached the messages discussing the contingency plan and insurance money, she stopped reading and looked directly at Rebecca. "Mrs. Reed, are you aware of the potential criminal implications of what's discussed in these messages?" Rebecca's attorney whispered urgently in her ear. "It wasn't like that, Your Honor," Rebecca stammered. "Gabriel was just... It was hypothetical. I never would have." "Save it for the criminal investigation," Judge Calloway interrupted. "This court's jurisdiction is limited to the division of assets and dissolution of marriage." Her ruling was unequivocal. All transferred assets would be returned to me. The house remained solely my property. Rebecca's claims for spousal support were denied, and the forgery evidence was referred to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. As we left the courtroom, Rebecca attempted to approach me. I simply kept walking. Some victories require no further words. 1 year later, I stood on the deck of my cabin, overlooking Maine's Penobscot Bay, a property held by Sentinel Securities for the past 8 years. Rebecca never knew it existed. The forgery charges against her had resulted in a plea agreement. No jail time, but 3 years of probation and restitution payments she would likely never complete. Last I heard, she was living with her sister in Philadelphia, working as a gallery assistant again. I'd taken a sabbatical from international consulting, using the time to establish a boutique investment firm focused on ethical enterprise in developing markets. Between my investments, savings, and the new company's potential, I had more than enough for a fulfilling future. Edward still called occasionally with updates from Boston. I'd sold the house there. The memories were irredeemably tainted. He'd helped salvage family heirlooms, shipping them to Maine and finding good homes for the rest. The afternoon mail brought a final envelope from Vincent, documentation showing the dissolution of Sentinel Securities. Its purpose was complete. Assets transferred, taxes paid, a chapter closed. As the sun set over the bay, I poured a glass of Macallan 25, a bottle I'd been saving for a truly significant occasion, and sat on the handcrafted Adirondack chair I'd built that summer. For the first time in years, no one was expecting anything from me. No clients awaiting strategies, no wife pretending loyalty, just the rhythm of waves against the shore. My phone rang. The CEO of an international development bank offering a senior advisory position. Excellent compensation, Minimal travel, leveraging the expertise I'd cultivated over decades. I'll consider it, I told him, and I would. But not tonight. Tonight was just for me, for the peace I'd earned, for the life I was finally living authentically, on my own terms.